It was a cold winter night in Westminster. A new session of Parliament was due to open the following morning. Just after midnight, a search party entered the cellars below the old Parliament House. The date was November the 5th, 1605. Under the vaults, they found a stranger, booted and spurred. And hidden under firewood, 36 barrels of gunpowder, enough to blow up Parliament 20 times over. The man they arrested was a Catholic soldier called Guy Fawkes. The first link in the chain of the greatest terrorist conspiracy Britain has ever known.
If they had succeeded in doing what they wanted to do, it would have been the bloodiest and most appalling plot in English history.
It was the first attempt to blow up the entire British establishment.
Just take a checklist of who would have been present had that explosion gone off. The king, the queen, the princes, the lords, the bishops, the gentry, the judges.
It's the first real attempt to use gunpowder technology for widespread terrorism. In other words, it's the gunpowder equivalent of the atomic bomb strike on Hiroshima.
On Sunday the 20th of May, 1604, in the Duck and Drake Inn just off the Strand in London, 5 men met in an upper room. They were there to plan the assassination of King James I and the destruction of his entire government. This gunpowder plot was not the brainchild of the infamous Guy Fawkes. They'd met at the summons of a young man called Robert, or Robin, Catesby.
Catesby's clearly the leader. He's the man with charisma, the man who recruits other people. He's the man who has the idea of blowing up the Palace of Westminster. So we ought really to call it Catesby's night rather than Guy Fawkes' night.
Catesby's far and away, I think, the most attractive personality among the gunpowder plotters. Everybody agrees he was an absolutely charismatic figure. He was the sort of person who, if you met, whatever resistance you'd initially planned to his ideas, they crumbled.
What had led Robert Catesby to such a drastic plan of action? On On the surface, he seemed hardly the type. In 1602, in Queen Elizabeth's England, he appeared to have everything going for him. Catesby was a young nobleman with a dashing reputation as a swordsman and man of action. He had land, he had connections. But in a country as aggressively Protestant as Queen Elizabeth's, one thing counted against Robert Catesby. He was Catholic and proud of it.
He's not, as it were, a crypto-Catholic. He's an out-and-out Catholic with a very strong view of the burdens that Catholics bear, and that Catholics should not be passive, but should seize an opportunity to better their condition.
In the 70 years since the English Reformation, most Catholics had learned to keep their heads down and their faith to themselves. Most even attended church with their Protestant neighbors. But not Catesby. He was part of a network of wealthy Catholic families who refused to conform, who chose instead to suffer crippling fines for non-attendance. The government called them recusants.
A recusant is somebody, comes from the Latin word recusare, to refuse. And a recusant is somebody who refuses to give outward conformity. Somebody who will not, say, well, I'm Catholic inside, but I'm not a Catholic outside. Very much like the people in Eastern Europe who refuse to conform, what we call the refuseniks. You nearly always get in any society, particularly societies that are under pressure, some people who will not agree to go along with the mass. And the recusants are those sorts of people.
In her Warwickshire manor house, Catesby's cousin Anne Vaux lived in a private Catholic world. Priests were sheltered in secret, children sent to be educated in Catholic schools abroad. In their own eyes, the recusants were a beleaguered minority, struggling to keep the true faith alive. But to the authorities, people like Anne Vaux and her cousin Catesby seemed dangerous. England was at war with Catholic Spain. It made the recusants potential fifth columnists, an enemy within, a security risk to be watched at all costs.
The most commonly used comparison of life for Catholic Elizabethan England in modern day is that of being a communist in 1950s America. But to be a communist in 50s America is a holiday camp compared with being a Catholic recusant under Elizabeth. For a start, you're always in danger of having your property searched, usually at night and always without warning. You are always politically suspect. You're regarded as being the agent of a foreign power, subverting everything for which the realm stood. Above all, if you actually do what a Catholic's supposed to do, which is hear the word of God according to your church, you need a priest. If you harbour a priest, you're in serious trouble.